I didn't even want this babysitting job in the first place. My mom forced me into it, saying I needed to get out of the house more and make some extra money. But as I walked up the long driveway to the isolated house where I'd be watching the kids, I started to regret ever agreeing to this. The house looked ancient, with peeling paint and overgrown trees blocking most of the windows. I felt my heart beating faster as I knocked on the heavy wooden door. An older woman answered, peering at me through the crack. "You must be the babysitter," she muttered, opening the door wider to let me step inside. "The kids are upstairs in the playroom. Bedtime is 9 sharp. No exceptions." I nodded, glancing around the dim entryway. Dusty oil paintings stared back at me as I made my way towards the staircase. The floorboards creaked under my feet, even though I was trying to walk lightly. At the top of the stairs, I turned towards the only room with light spilling out. Inside, I found a young boy and girl, maybe 8 and 6, sitting quietly on the floor. Too quietly on the floor. Too quietly. They both turned to look at me with expressionless faces. "Hi, guys," I started to say. Suddenly, the little girl let out a blood-curdling scream that made my heart jump out of my chest. The boy remained creepily composed, eyes locked on mine. "Very funny," I muttered once I regained my composure. "So, what do you guys want to do before bedtime?" The kids just kept staring. I sat awkwardly on the floor across from them. "We could color or play a game," I suggested optimistically. Still nothing. Sighing, I pulled out my phone to scroll while keeping an eye on the bizarrely mute children. After what felt like forever, the large grandfather clock downstairs chimed 9 times. Bedtime at last. "Okay, let's get you two to bed," I said, relief flooding my voice. But as soon as the words left my mouth, the lights flickered off, leaving us in total darkness. My whole body tensed. "All right, very funny prank," I called out shakily. Still, the kids said nothing. Blindly, I reached my hands out, trying to find them in the dark room. My fingers only grasped at empty space. "Where are you guys?" I whispered. "Come on, time for bed." Suddenly, a piercing scream rang out from downstairs. My blood ran cold. What was happening in this house? I pulled out my phone again desperately, using the dim light from the screen to look for the door. But someone had closed it from the outside, locking me in the dark playroom. Panicked, I pounded my fists on the door, calling for help. Silence answered. Then, through the phone's glow, I saw 2 small figures materialize in the shadows behind me. Slowly, I turned to see the children standing there, pale faces peering at me through stringy dark hair. They watched me, unblinking as they crept closer. I gasped and stumbled back against the door. With trembling hands, I called 911 and brought the phone to my ear, only to hear no dial tone on the end, just static. Looking up with horror, I now saw 5 ghostly children circling around me. Their lifeless eyes bored into mine as they closed in. I dropped the useless phone, screaming and groping wildly for an escape from my human cage. Suddenly, I felt tiny cold fingers grasping at my wrists, pulling me down towards the floor. As I thrashed desperately, I slid through their shadowy hands like smoke until my head hit the ground with a crack. Dazed, I looked up to see the children vanishing before my eyes, leaving me alone on the floor once again. I clawed my way towards where I thought the door was, yelling until my voice became hoarse. At last, faint footsteps creaked down the hall through the deafening silence. The door swung open, flooding the room with light and revealing the elderly woman, staring down at me crumpled on the floor. As she led me downstairs silently, I begged her to tell me what had just happened. She remained mute. When we reached the heavy front door, all she said was the children you met tonight passed away long ago. Before shutting the door abruptly on my horrified face, I sprinted down that long wooded driveway without looking back once. I still have nightmares about those ghostly faces watching me in the dark. My mom insists I go babysit for one of her friends next weekend, but there's no way I'm stepping foot in another stranger's house ever again, no matter what she offers to pay me. Babysitting on a quiet suburban street seemed like an easy gig, a chance to earn some extra cash while the kids slept soundly upstairs. Little did I know, that night would turn into a spine-chilling experience that still sends shivers down my spine. As I entered the Andersons' house, a sense of normalcy embraced me. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson were friendly, providing a list of emergency numbers and a brief rundown of their kids' bedtime routines. The cozy living room was adorned with family photos, creating an illusion of warmth that would soon be shattered. The kids, Tommy and Lily, were tucked in bed without a fuss. I settled on the living room couch with a book. The soft hum of the refrigerator, the only audible sound. Hours passed in a mundane rhythm until I noticed a faint tapping on the window, like the soft fingers of someone seeking attention. Glancing outside, I saw nothing but darkness, dismissing it as my imagination. I returned to my book, the tapping fading into the background. Just as I convinced myself it was a trick of the wind, the noise resumed, more insistent this time. My gaze fixated on the window, searching for the source. That's when I saw him, a silhouette against the moonlit night, obscured by the shadows of the backyard. A chill ran down my spine as I realized I was not alone. Panic set in, and my eyes locked with the intruder's, his face hidden beneath a hood. He raised a finger to his lips, a silent command to keep his presence a secret. Fear gripped me, but a sense of responsibility to the sleeping children compelled me to investigate. I tiptoed toward the back door, my heart pounding in my ears. The night air was thick with an unsettling stillness as I stepped onto the porch, the intruder disappearing into the abyss. My eyes scanned the yard, and in the distance, I spotted a figure darting between trees. The stalker was real, and he was watching. Adrenaline fueled my actions as I rushed back inside, locking every door and window in a futile attempt to secure the house against an unseen threat. Anxiety settled in as I contemplated my next move.
Do I wake the kids and alert the neighbors, or do I silently endure this unnerving game of cat and mouse?
The tapping persisted, now accompanied by distant whispers that seemed to penetrate the walls, a disconcerting symphony of paranoia. The night stretched into an eternity, the minutes ticking by with excruciating slowness. I paced the living room, the rhythmic tapping on the window, a haunting reminder that I was not alone. The stalker reveled in the psychological torment, his presence an uninvited guest in the Andersons' home. With each passing moment, my nerves frayed, and I questioned the safety of the seemingly impenetrable walls. The stalker's intentions remained shrouded in mystery, his silent pursuit a relentless reminder of vulnerability. As I peered through the curtains, I caught glimpses of him lurking in the shadows, his eyes fixed on mine with an unsettling intensity. In a desperate attempt to break the suffocating tension, I called the police, my voice trembling as I recounted the nightmarish encounter. They assured me that help was on the way, but the minutes dragged on like hours. Alone in the dimly lit house, I clung to the phone, the dispatcher's words a lifeline in the face of impending danger. The distant wail of sirens finally pierced the silence, and relief washed over me as flashing lights illuminated the darkened street. The stalker, sensing the encroaching threat, vanished into the night, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. The police searched the area, but found no trace of the elusive intruder. As dawn broke, the Andersons returned, oblivious to the terror that unfolded within the walls of their home. I shared the harrowing events of the night, leaving them with a chilling awareness that safety is a fragile illusion. To this day, the memory of that babysitting night lingers. A cautionary tale that the ordinary can swiftly transform into a nightmare. The Andersons moved away, and I, haunted by the shadows of that relentless stalker, am left with a lingering fear of the quiet nights that conceal more than meets the eye. Babysitting had always been a routine gig for me, a way to make some extra cash during college. Little did I know that one fateful night would plunge me into a real-life nightmare. The Johnsons, a seemingly average couple with a picturesque suburban home, had hired me to watch over their 2 kids while they enjoyed a rare date night. As I settled into the cozy living room, the kids, Timmy and Sarah, engrossed in a Disney movie. Everything felt normal, routine even. But little did I know, the routine was about to unravel into a chilling ordeal. As the kids drifted off to sleep, I settled into the quietude of the house, finding solace in the pages of a novel. The hum of the refrigerator and the distant murmur of the night outside created a comforting backdrop. That's when I first noticed it, the subtle rustle of leaves outside the living room window. At first, I dismissed it as the wind playing tricks, but as the rustling persisted, my unease grew. I peered into the darkness beyond the glass, my eyes straining to discern any movement. Nothing, just the swaying branches of the old oak tree that stood sentinel in the Johnsons' front yard. I shook off the nagging feeling, attributing it to an overactive imagination. But as the night wore on, the sense of being watched intensified. The familiar creaks of the floorboards echoed with an unsettling weight, as if someone were pacing just out of sight. Rationalizing that it was my nerves getting the better of me, I carried on, checking on the kids and assuring myself that it was just a typical babysitting jitters. The turning point came when I received a text from an unknown number. "I'm watching you," it read, the words sending a shiver down my spine. I scanned the dimly lit room, my eyes darting to the windows. Nothing. No movement. No silhouette lurking in the shadows. Fear clung to me like a second skin as I grappled with the decision to alert the authorities or dismiss it as a cruel prank. The uneasy feeling lingered, a knot tightening in my stomach as I paced through the house. My ears tuned to every creak and groan. The kids remained peacefully asleep, blissfully unaware of the growing dread that gripped me. As I debated my next move, another message illuminated my phone screen.
"You should check on the kids," it read, the words cutting through the silence like a knife. Panic surged through me as I rushed to Timmy and Sarah's rooms, my heart pounding in my chest. To my horror, Timmy's window stood ajar, the curtains billowing in the night breeze. My mind raced, conjuring images of an intruder slipping into the house. I woke the kids with a hushed urgency, guiding them into the safety of the living room. My trembling fingers dialed 911, my voice barely above a whisper as I relayed the situation. As I waited for the police, the atmosphere in the house thickened with tension. Every sound became a potential threat. A creak on the stairs, a distant car engine. I drew the curtains tight, obscuring any view into the house. The minutes dragged on, each one feeling like an eternity, until the distant wail of sirens cut through the night. The police arrived, sweeping the house with a meticulous thoroughness. But the intruder, if there ever was one, had vanished without a trace. The officers offered reassurance, attributing the mysterious messages to a possible prank or a wrong number. Despite their attempts to ease my fears, the chilling certainty lingered that someone had been watching, waiting in the shadows. In the aftermath, the Johnsons returned to find a shaken babysitter and a house that bore no signs of the eerie intrusion. They, like the police, dismissed it as a bizarre prank, leaving me to grapple with the haunting uncertainty of that night. The incident left an indelible mark on my perception of babysitting, turning a once mundane task into a nerve-wracking venture. The quiet suburbs, once a haven of tranquility, now held a shadowy undercurrent. Every rustle of leaves and creak of the floorboards became a reminder of the unseen eyes that had watched my every move. That night forever changed my perspective on safety and the illusion of security. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the most ordinary of nights can take a sinister turn, leaving you to question the shadows that linger just beyond the glow of familiarity. I was so excited when the Smith family down the street asked me to babysit their daughter Emma for the evening. I had babysat a few times before and loved spending time with the playful 6-year-old. I figured we'd play some games, watch a Disney movie, eat some snacks. It would be fun and easy. The night started off normally enough. Emma's parents walked me through her routine. Dinner at 6, bath time at 7, bedtime at 7, bedtime at 8.
They said Emma had been struggling with bad dreams lately, so I should be sure to keep the hall light on and check on her a few times once she was asleep. Then they headed out for date night, and I waved goodbye. Emma and I played dolls for a while as she told me all about her imaginary friend Sarah. According to Emma, Sarah was a little girl with dark curly hair who lived in the walls. I chuckled and went along with her silly story. Kids have such active imaginations. After pizza and a bubble bath, I tucked Emma into bed with her favorite stuffed penguin. I turned on the hall light and started cleaning up the toys in the living room. About an hour later, I heard Emma crying out. I rushed to check and found her sitting up, looking distressed. I had a scary dream, she sobbed. A big dog was chasing me. It's okay, sweetie. Just a dream, I soothed, patting her back. I offered to leave the door cracked so my presence would comfort her. She nodded and cuddled her penguin, drifting back to sleep. I was washing dishes when I suddenly felt cold, like a chill was seeping into the room. I shivered and glanced around nervously. The house was so still, too still somehow. I shook off my unease and decided to peek in on Emma again. As I tiptoed down the dark hallway, the bulb in the overhead light began to flicker. My heart quickened as I approached Emma's room. Cold air escaped through the crack in the door. Then I froze. A small shadow stretched out from inside the room. It looked like a child. Emma suddenly let out a sharp cry. I burst through the door and my stomach dropped. Curled up at the foot of the bed was the silhouette of a little girl. She appeared to be stroking Emma's feet. Adrenaline flooded my veins. I flicked on the light, expecting to find an intruder, but no one was there. Just Emma whimpering under her blankets. I frantically searched under the bed, in the closets, out the window. Nothing. The room was totally empty aside from Emma and I. Sarah was here, Emma said between sobs. She tries to take me away to her house in the walls. I felt faint, but tried to hide my panic from Emma's watchful eyes. I told her no one could take her away as long as I was there. She begged me not to leave. I reluctantly agreed, though staying in that room made my skin crawl for reasons I couldn't explain. We cuddled up to read stories until Emma fell asleep. Hours passed without incident. I must have dreamed up that shadowy figure. Too many scary movies, I guessed. At last, the bedside clock read midnight. The parents would be home soon. I decided to start getting my things together. As I crossed through the living room, the front door suddenly creaked open. I gasped, expecting to see the Smiths. Instead, a small, pale hand grasped the edge of the door. My heart stopped as a little girl with ratty hair and sunken eyes peered in. It had to be Sarah, the imaginary friend. She flashed a grin of sharp teeth and scurried into the shadows. Stunned, I stood, frozen, barely able to breathe. Then I heard a faint giggle echo from down the hallway, followed by Emma's scream splitting the silence. Adrenaline kicked in, and I sprinted toward her room. Bursting through the door, I found Emma cowering on the bed, pointing at the wall. The closet door shook violently. From inside came the giggles again, echoing as if through a tunnel. Emma wailed. "She lives in there. She wants me to go with her." The door rattled faster, scratching and knocking filling the room. I swept Emma into my arms and fled into the hallway, my only thought to get her out of that house. We had just reached the front door when Emma cried out. Sarah, no. I turned to see the ghostly little girl crawling upside down along the ceiling, her body twisting unnaturally. She scuttled into the hallway, her neck cracking as her head rotated further than any human. A screeching noise made my ears ring. Shielding Emma, I crashed outside into the night. The icy air burned my lungs as we ran and ran, Emma's screams fading behind us. At last I stopped, gasping for breath and shaking all over. I tightened my grasp on Emma as she whimpered against my shoulder. The neighbors were rushing over as I begged them to call the police. Minutes later, Emma was safely in the arms of a policewoman while others swept the house. But they found no signs of an intruder nor tunnels in walls or closets. No clues to back up my terrifying encounter. only an untouched Emma's room and her weary parents wondering what spooked the babysitter. But I know what I saw, and I'll never forget that ghostly face. Still now, I glimpse shadows from the corner of my eye, catch faint giggles in empty rooms. Sarah is out there somewhere hungry for a playmate. So parents, please, watch over your little ones, or the imaginary friend in the walls may just lure them away.